We have a 16-week internship for the MBA graduates.
Okay.
So the purpose of that is to have a real-time exposure to the students.
Right.
So that the students can take up a few of the live situations of the institute, so that they can study, analyze, and do the literature review and take that as a problem and try to solve or give a solution. It's not going to be a big deal, but that's a kind of a nascent step from the students.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. So at the end, maybe Ramya may ask you some few questions related to, can we incorporate, because we never touched upon this topic, corporate restructuring. So it has, I think, many avenues to focus.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So we thought like she may ask you a few questions regarding that, so that how that can be a part of our project.
Sure.
So
Please,
that
we'll be very
value
happy
addition.
to.
Right. Yeah. That's a thing.
Yeah.
So
ma'am, I'll just quickly check is everything ready, so then we can start, ma'am, in a minute.
Yes.
Ma'am, we can start, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Lokesh Gupta, my dear faculty members and students. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to today's event. And the topic is corporate restructuring. And the guest of today is Mr. Lokesh Gupta, partner, debt and special situation at EY. So we are really honored and thrilled to have you today as a guest to address our MBA graduates who are eager to listen to you on this topic and related field. On behalf of Department of Management Studies and the Dayananda Sagara College of Engineering, I'm Dr. KG Hemalata. Welcome you to this event, and I'll after this I'll hand over the session to our student executive Kaushik Iyengar. He's going to give an intro about you, and followed by your lecture. Thank you very much, Lokesh Gupta, for coming forward to help us out to understand about industry's updates. Thank you very much, and welcome you on behalf of everyone. Over to you, Kaushik Iyengar.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kaushik Dayananda, and it is my distinct honor to welcome you all to the esteemed CK Prahalad Lecture series on corporate restructuring. Our privilege today for having Mr. Lokesh Gupta. Mr. Lokesh Gupta is a seasoned professional in the world of finance, holding the impressive achievement of securing 43rd All India rank in Chartered Accountancy examinations conducted by ICAI back in 2009. Mr. Gupta's journey through the finance landscape began with a BCom honors degree from Indian Institute of Management and Commerce in 2007. Since then, he has accumulated over 16 years of experience specializing in debt and special situations. Currently, Mr. Gupta serves as a partner in debt and special situations at EY. His career has been defined by his exceptional expertise in corporate restructuring. And today we have the privilege of tapping into his wealth of knowledge and experience. Your presence today signifies a shared commitment to knowledge and growth, sir. And I am privileged to be your host for this enlightful event. So, without any further ado, let us begin the journey of exploration and understanding. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaushik. Thank you, Dr. Hemlata, for all the kind words. I am very thrilled and very joyous today morning to see MBA class choosing this topic as for discussion, for deliberation. I must say that when I first did or ventured into distress corporate advisory about 13 years back, it was by chance. There was no such field existing in India. There were no full-time dedicated professionals doing this to help companies. It was more of a referral business and calls from the US that we got into as an opportunity. And then we build onto this. So I really did not choose this as an option to begin with. I did this by chance and happened to like it, and have been doing this for 12, 13 years. So, and that I would say will be the story with a lot of professionals who are practicing this profession today. However, last 2, 3 years, I have seen that a lot of colleges, academia, realizing that this could be a important area or field of study for students aspiring to have a full-time career in a field like this, which has developed and evolved over last 1 decade in India. It is very thrilling for me to address a MBA class on this subject. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and more importantly, thank you for considering this as an area of interest and investing time in this. Right. So to briefly talk about turnarounds and restructuring, let me give a basic background about what it is and why. If I say that we have been doing this for last 1 decade, why is that somebody started doing this so late in the country, right? Now, one typical feature of this not having gained as much traction and as much depth as our Western economies is a typical nature of the Indian businesses, right? In your MBA classes in the first year, you would have read about this concept called ownership and management are different, right? In businesses, right? Your MBA textbooks have taught that. But in India, if you see most of the businesses, ownership and management are same. The shareholders who have founded the company, the shareholders who own the company, are the ones who run it on a day-to-day basis. Most of the businesses, whether small, medium, large, or the largest, are run by families. And therefore, if something wrong happens, it is very difficult emotionally for an entrepreneur who has started a business and runs it to let go of it or to have or accept an external involvement or intervention, right? I mean, on a lighter note, first of all, as Indians, we all have this basic tendency of not accepting or acknowledging our problems, right? First, we don't accept or acknowledge problems. And then, even if we acknowledge, we believe that we can solve it ourselves, right? That's a basic human tendency. On top of that, if you really look at it from a way that somebody who has started a business, run it for 25 years, just because there's a problem, the person will say, okay, I have started it, I have run it for 25 years, so I can as well solve it. Unless it is too late and they see things slipping out of their hand, they don't recognize and they don't entertain any external intervention. So that is one reason why the turnaround field developed quite late in the country. I think the second issue is around our regulatory environment, right? Businesses often take external capital. Now, external capital can come from the typical rights, public IPOs. Current season, you see a lot of IPOs getting filed. Now, retail investors like you and me, even though we are technically owners of a company, cannot interfere directly in operations of a company. So the other two class of capital providers are lenders and large equity investors, right? Now, if a lender or an equity investor has put money in a company which is being run by the founders, who also are either majority shareholder or a significant minority, the regulatory environment has to be very amicable to them to take measures to protect their capital, right? So the lenders usually they're uh, uh, let's talk about lenders first. Now, historically, lenders protection rights mainly were revolving around recovery of their money, right? In 2004, the SARFAESI Act had come. SARFAESI Act basically allows a lender to take physical possession of the assets if the company is not able to repay the loans and sell them, right? It was not focused on revival of the business, right? In 2016, this reformatory law called Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code came, where the lenders could take control of a company, not to liquidate or sell it in nuts and bolts. The objective of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code is to enable lenders to revive a company's operations to benefit of all stakeholders, employees, vendors, other shareholders, etc. And the law came in 2017 and it has been working fantastically well. Now, And similarly, before IBC came in, from 2015 onwards, the Reserve Bank of India had come with a lot of circulars, master directions on how lenders could treat defaulting loans, right? There were schemes like strategic debt restructuring, where lenders could convert a part of their debt to 51% equity shares in the company, thereby taking the control of the company, and then finding a suitable investor and selling and causing a change of management, right? Since 2015, the change of management concept has evolved where whether it is Reserve Bank of India or this very popular section called 29A in IBC calls for change of management. It just says that if existing owners and managers have failed to revive a business, they don't deserve to continue owning and running that business. So whether it was the 2015 RBI circular, which no longer is valid, called strategic debt restructuring, or section 29A of IBC, both these provisions or enactments, the objective was that if a certain owner manager was not able to run the business properly, they don't deserve to get a second chance, right? And the company has to go into new hands. So there, what I'm just trying to say, in last 1 decade, we have seen a lot of powers which are coming to the lenders so that they, to protect their capital, they can do external interference in a company, and thereby this is one of the reasons why this profession is growing, is the external capital providers have more teeth. Similarly, IBC has provided opportunity to a lot of equity investors to buy, do management buyouts of companies uh, uh, in form of equity under IBC, or giving debt where they have more significant rights, protection rights to protect their capital, right? So that is a background why we had not heard about this profession for a long time, and why we are hearing about uh, this in more in last 1 decade. Now, what is corporate restructuring? Let's talk about important components. If I talk, because I'm an accountant, I can start by giving an example in terms of accounting. When you talk about a business, there are two aspects, right? Balance sheet and P&L, right? Or in finance terms, operations and capital. A business requires capital and then it does operations. So if a business has a problem, the problem will either be in operations, that its sales are declining because there is a lot of competition in the market, the product is not superior enough because of macroeconomic factors, or the costs are increasing because some raw material costs have gone up, or because of labor strikes. Host of factors. There can be 10,000 reasons why operations can suffer, right? So one reason why businesses have problem is anything relating to the operations. In accountants' terminology, anything relating to the P&L. And the second problem could be because of capital, right? You have taken too much loans, you're not able to repay the loans, and therefore the lenders take coercive action, or because you have gone into a cash flow crunch, you're not able to pay your vendors, and you're not able to get the material, raw material or services that you require to do your business. And capital problem could mean lenders are not supporting you to restructure the loan, or you need more money and nobody is ready to give you more money, right? Nowadays, you might be reading in newspapers, a lot of startups are trying to do IPO, but the IPO has failed. They are trying to raise money, but they are not getting money. So the capital could be the second problem. So when you talk about corporate restructuring, it could mean to either of two things. One is solving a business problem or solving a capital problem, right? Solving a capital problem can mean financial restructuring. One element, if you within financial restructuring, if you are talking, most of the times you will talk about solving the problem of debt, right? And that is called debt restructuring. And if you are talking about solving a P&L problem, it is called, let's say, operations restructuring, right? Let's first talk about financial restructuring. It's a very vast field. When we talk about financial restructuring, essentially most of the times we are talking about loans. And if we are talking about loans in India, it will essentially be a loan given by a bank or a non-banking financial institution or an entity that is regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. Now, if a bank or any entity which has given a loan and is regulated by Reserve Bank of India, and if that loan is defaulted or there is a stress, you just bilaterally cannot decide to change the terms of the loan, right? For example, if somebody is defaulted, the lender cannot go and tell the borrower that, okay, you were supposed to repay this loan in 10 years, now I'll allow 2 years extra, right? Or I will reduce the rate of interest from 12% to 10%. A bank simply on their own whims and fancies cannot do that. They are guided by very strict circulars of the Reserve Bank of India, which provide for regulated schemes for changing or renegotiating the terms of the debt. Right? In 2015, when Dr. Raghuram Rajan had become the governor of Reserve Bank of India, he had brought many circulars around this. One was strategic debt restructuring. The other one was popularly called as S4A, where you could classify your debt into sustainable, unsustainable. Before that, in 2010, around 2010, there was this famous CDR's corporate debt restructuring scheme that had gone for 8-10 years before the changes happened. And now today, all the prior circulars of Reserve Bank of India around restructuring of corporate debt were repealed and replaced by what we called as June 7 circular. Prior to June 7 circular, there was a circular called Feb 12, which came in different years. The Feb 12 circular, which RBI brought, happened to come on a day called Mahashivratri, and the circular was so reformatory and so radical that no one slept that night. And going by the trend of or requirement of a Shivratri, and that circular was actually called Mahashivratri circular, because it just said that even if there is a 1 rupee default and you restructure debt, you will be NP on day one, right? And nobody accepted that RBI will come with such a strong circular, repealing all the prior circulars that it had, right? It was constitutionally challenged by many people, saying that it was not constitutionally valid. So with some changes, the Reserve Bank of India in the next year came out with a circular on 7th of June, and now that we popularly called as June 7 circular. And June 7 circular is the only valid guideline or framework that under which a debt can be restructured, right? So why is it important? The circular provides for many rules and rules of the game around debt restructuring. One, it says that if you restructure your debt, the moment you restructure, it is an NPA, right? What is an NPA? If you don't service a debt from up to for a period of 90 days, on 90 days you become a non-performing asset as a borrower, which is a red flag, right? Which means that the situations are very bad. However, if you are, let's say, 30 days default, you are technically not an NPA, but you are what is called as special mention account 1. So when Dr. Rajan was at RBI under his governorship, these regulations came. So 0 to 30 days called SMA 0S, special mention account. Then 30 to 60 days default is called SMA 1, which is called special mention account 1. And 60 to 90 is called SMA 2, special mention account 2, and post 90 days it becomes NPA. Now, even if a SMA 012 account does a restructuring, the circular says on day one it becomes NPA. Right now, banks, it is very difficult for banks to accept that, because an NPA causes provisioning in the books of bank, in the P&L of the bank. And in the balance sheet, they have to disclose what is the total gross and net NPA they have. It affects their calculations of capital adequacy ratios at all. So it is not very easy for a bank to increase NPA on their books. So it is banks easily don't restructure loans because on day one of restructuring, the account will become NPA. They would rather say that please enforce recovery measures and try to recover as much as possible than doing a restructuring and taking a hit of NPA. The circular further says that if you do a restructuring with change of management, which means that people who were earlier running and managing the show are no longer there and somebody new comes in, then the restructuring will not immediately lead to classifying the borrower as NPA. Right. So this is just a gist I'm telling you, but there are more greater nuances around everything relating to a loan, working capital loan, term loan, additional limits, fund-based limits, non-fund-based limits. It's a very vast field, and everything is more or less guided by the framework of the Reserve Bank of India, which all banks and NBFCs have to follow. And then every bank and NBFC will have their own credit rules, internal credit guidelines, basis which they will take decisions on giving more loans or changing terms of existing loans. So this is one class of lenders. Then of course, of late, you must be reading in newspapers about this new concept called private credit, right? And EY has released a report on the private credit field, giving what is the overall market size, what are the deals that have happened, how much how much do we expect this to grow in next few years. It's a very well appreciated report quoted by most of the newspapers of late. I encourage you to just go to EY website and download and see that report. So what is private credit? Basically, any credit or loan given by a non-banking entity is called private credit, right? There could be credit funds, there could be special situation funds. Like for example, in India, Kotak has a special situation fund. Cerebrus, Goldman Sachs, SSG. There are very many institutions that give loans in a special situation, which normally a bank may not give because of the credit risk. Suppose a large company undergoing facing losses for 5, 7, 8, 10 years, a bank will not give loan to such companies because of the credit risk involved. However, there are these specialized funds who call themselves as special situation funds, who will take risk. Although risk comes at a high cost. If a bank interest is 10-12%, these credit funds provide loans at rate of 16 to 24% per annum. And so that's a new class of loans that is arising called private credit. Private credit for non-performing or stress businesses called as special situation funds, or then there is private credit in performing cases where there is no problem, but because of various issues, a company is not able to raise a normal banking debt. Let's say a IPO has got delayed, they need bridge finance for 6 months till the IPO. Or if a promoter wants to buy back some investors or partners in a company, giving loans to such promoters. So there can be many situations where a performing private credit can also be given. So that's the another class of lenders that is coming, and restructuring loans with them is also would come under ambit of financial restructuring. Although it regulatory wise it will be easier because they are not regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. At the same time, commercially they are very let's say very picky about their returns. They will be more because they are taking more, they will expect a greater return. So negotiations with them are generally tougher. But again, that's another subset of financial restructuring. Now coming to operational restructuring, again, there are no rules, laws, or regulations behind it. So financial restructuring clearly has a lot of RBI guidelines that one has to follow, and therefore you will need experts and consultants to tell you what can be done, what cannot be done. But when you talk about operations restructuring, you're talking about directly running, managing businesses, or running some initiative in a business to improve sales, reduce costs, or frankly, or just taking over the business as interim management, part-time CEO, part-time CFO. Very rarely you will hear about terms called Chief Restructuring Officer, CRO, who will restructure the business. So around the operations, there are no guidelines, laws, or regulations, right? It is how leaders of a business want to do that. Sometimes they do in-house. When they are doing in-house, whether the people who are doing day-to-day affairs will do operations restructuring, or they'll create a specialist in special team in-house, different from the people doing business as usual, or they will get external help. There are no laws, there are no regulations. It is up to one's own understanding and view of things as to how things needs to be solved. So therefore you see very less, you hear less in the newspapers or in public media about operations restructuring. However, Off late, a lot of businesses, as I said, because lenders and equity investors tend to have more powers because of the various regulatory reforms in India last few years, they can enforce business owners and managers to take external help to resolve. Now, in operations restructuring, it's a very complicated thing, especially when the business realizes that a problem is too late. As I said, we realize problems and take help only when it is too late, and in the early stages, we think that we can solve it ourselves. So normally, consultants come in too late, and I can tell you the kind of situations I work in. A normal day is as follows: a company where the salaries have not been paid for, let's say, 6-8 months. There have been no bonus or increments for last 5 years. Statutory dues like provident fund, TDS have not been deposited for anywhere between 12 to 24 months. Electricity bill is not paid of a factory is not paid for 2 months. The vendors, trade suppliers are not paid for 1 year. The bankers, the account is NPA for last 2-3 years. Now try to enter this company. Nobody will trust you. Everybody will be anxious. Nobody will be ready to support the business. Right? So in this, not only you have to first figure out the problem, but solve the problem while each of these stakeholders that I have named is standing with a sword. Right? Now, typically when people ask me more about operations restructuring, I correlate it, with not so good example, which is an emergency ward of a hospital. Right? Now, if you have seen a hospital, there is always this main entrance, etc. But then somewhere there will be in a corner called emergency ward where there will be no cars or nobody will be allowed, because any emergency ambulance rushing can go without any hurdles, and a life can be saved. Now, once you go to the emergency ward, there will be some doctors there. Right? Now, who are these doctors? At 2 a.m., 3 a.m. or any odd time, the doctor can be a person with any specialty, right? Orthopedic, neuro, cardio, whatever. But the case coming in emergency ward need not necessarily match with a specialist standing and waiting there, right? The job of the doctor there, whosoever or whatsoever specialty, the job is to first stabilize the patient. The job in emergency ward is not to make the patient healthy and prepare them for a marathon. It is basic survival. Right? So sometimes in operations restructuring, if the business has been facing stress for a long time and it's a piled up problem, the first task is not to create multi-billion-dollar valuation or profit or increase. The first thing is to have to secure the survival, right? So most of the times operations restructuring is from going -100 to +1. It is not about going from 1 to 100. Right? And trust me, the mindset of going from -100 to +1 is significantly different from going from 1 to 100. There are a lot of people who have taken their companies from 1 to 100. There are great leaders, but the same leaders have not necessarily done well when their company went into minus and they had to go from that minus to +1. Right? Because from a journey of 1 to 100, you take a company from 1 to 20, you have made it grown. Right? More or less is a different thing. Still, people will appreciate, oh, you grew it from 1 to 20. Right? Maybe not as fast as desired, but still you grew the company. Then once you're on a growth journey, there is capital, there are people backing you, there are dreams and ambitions, everything is working in your favor. But let's say if you're going from -100 to -2, it's not enough. The business will shut down. When you're talking about survival, you have to go from -100 to 1. There is no other option. There is no in between like growth. From 1, you can go to 20, 25, 30, 50, 60, 90, 100, whatever. Right? But when you're starting a journey at -100, the goal is only 1 +1. Anywhere in between is end of the game. Plus, here there will be challenges. You have not paid employees, they will not be willing to work with you, cooperate with you. You have not paid the banks, they will not give you more money. You are not given stat dues, they will be waiting to take legal actions like even arresting the directors. You have not paid service providers or material providers, they will not be ready to provide anything to you. In middle of all this, how do you really do anything? Right? So it's a two-pronged approach. One is, solving the short-term survival. Then second is to have a sustainable solution. What is a plan you make for medium term and how you achieve that? Now, of course, the biggest required thing in this is stakeholder management, which is most critical, right? Because most of the times in case of distress, the thing lacking is trust among the stakeholders. So the most important thing is to gain the trust of different stakeholders, whether they are your capital providers, employees, vendors, customers, statutory authorities, or whoever. So stakeholder management becomes very critical. Having clear view of priorities is very critical. Daily there will be 10, 15 different fires. You need to know which fire you need to put off first, right? It is very easy to get distracted. There is this old saying that the baby who cries most gets milk first, right? That proverb should not be followed in distress case or restructuring, because something which creates the most noise may not be your biggest problem, right? Working in distress, solving a problem of operations requires a lot of dispassionate thinking, ability to stay away from emotions, because you need to take very objective decisions, solve problems in with a priority, right? And now the problems could be just increasing sales, reducing costs, or collecting your debtors faster, things like that, right? To give you example, the first operational turnaround case that I did relates to something that you might know. How many of you would have gone and bought air conditioner in recent past, right? And when you go to a store, a question will be asked to you saying you want a copper condenser, or a compressor, or a aluminum compressor. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So when we were doing this turnaround of a compressor manufacturer, the copper prices in 2011 were going out of the sky, and it was very and if commodity prices go up, anything which is in early stage of value creation, you can increase the price correspondingly. But at a fag end of value chain, let's say a compressor which uses copper in the winding, it's very difficult to pass on or increase the sales price overnight. Because if you say copper price of increase, I will increase the price of a compressor, that means that the end product using a compressor, which is essentially either a fridge or a AC, they cannot increase price of a fridge or air condition in the market for customers like you and me overnight, right? Imagine today you went to a electronic store, you say that this AC is 35,000. Tomorrow you go, it cannot be 40,000, right? No customer will like that. So the ability to pass on the prices was difficult. There were a lot of other cost challenges. There was a requirement that we had to bring down the cost, and there were these ideas in the organization that you can take out copper from the compressor winding and put an aluminum winding around it. And however, it was never tried. The compressors were exported in Middle East countries which had very strict energy efficiency norms, norms relating to the sound emission, etc. Now it had to be tested, but in middle of chaos, right? As I said, the management bandwidth is focused on putting off too many fires. So you need someone dedicated with peace of mind and not too many emotions or stress to solve and win the right battles. And this was one of the battles that we picked up. And we launched a project where we first created a prototype, tested it in-house, sent it to customers as a sample, uh, passed it through the test of the energy efficiency, sound emission norms, got approvals, got customer sign-offs, and started exporting. Right? It was a project which took 1 year. It was one of the first companies to adopt it, and it was a great success. And now, almost every company has switched to both the models of commodity in making compressors. Right. So these could be the kind of things that you would do when solving problems under operations restructuring. Another proverb that is very relevant in operations restructuring is necessity is mother of all inventions, right? And in distress, the proverb goes like, survival will be the mother of all out of box thinking, right? If and it is not rocket science, right? If people here live in hostels with a limited source of income by way of whatever pocket money you get, or some part-time jobs you might be having. Imagine how you are at beginning of the month and towards end of the month. Towards end of the month, when there is little or no cash left, you will have 50,000 creative ways to get what you want, right? But those creativity will not come at beginning of the month because you have enough money in your pocket. Right? Same thing goes for business. When your back is against the wall, when survival is at stake, great ideas will automatically come, not because of great thinking, but when survival is at stake, mind automatically starts thinking, right? Such is a human mind, right? So yeah, a lot of out of box thinking is required, and just as they say, necessity is mother of invention, survival is mother of out of box thinking. Is what I feel most of the times, because sometimes I also feel in a normal situation I may not have thought about a good idea, but in a stress situation automatically some great idea comes, uh, right? And often I joke with my client that if they give me an easy task, I'm incapable to do it. First I make it complicated, then I do it, because mind works only when there is complication, right? So that's a bit about uh, operations restructuring and financial restructuring. um, I will touch upon another interesting topic, which is the current flavor of the market, is a lot of startups that are failing, right? Because you're reading about them in newspapers, and I'll briefly touch upon that also. So, why are so many startups failing, right? They come out with some great idea, and then a lot of capital is put behind them. They do some business, and then they struggle, right? I think the biggest and very simple reason for that is to really know what you are really doing. What is your business model, right? Like, there are people who use different terms like fintech, edtech, e-commerce, cut tech. The question here is, are you a technology company or a consumer company, right? If it is about tech, tech is an enabler, right? You're selling something, technology is enabling you to get the product from the source where it is created to the end consumer. But which does it mean you're a tech company? Now, if you're a tech company, don't focus on selling the product. If you're a tech company, behave like Infosys and TCS, who create software and sell it to these companies. What's your core? Tech is an enabler to make customer experience pleasant. Tech is a enabler to make your business operations efficient. But is tech your core business? No. If tech was your core business, then you rather be a technology company and become Wipro, Infosys, TCS, Microsoft, whatever. But if your product is your core, you should focus on your core and see and create your business model around that, right? If your product is just like any other product, then someday you have just filled up a space in the demand supply gap in the market, and you were able to do some sales, but somebody will catch up. If technology is your play, then technology is not unique. It is not copper written like Google's secret search engine code, right? These are platforms that anybody can create and anybody will catch up, right? Unless you focus on your product, right? And unless your product is unique, somebody will catch up and you will not be able to keep up making profits. And that is the reason I feel a lot of business models lack clarity about what they really want to sell or want to do, right? It is important to acknowledge what you are and then focus around that. So I feel, one, if as a business model in startups, either one, you need to have a great product which is very different from others, or of superior quality which nobody can match, or let's say you create a scale that nobody can match. Let's take example of Ola and Uber, right? In 2012, perhaps there were 10 or 12 taxi aggregation apps. Taxi for Sure, Book My Taxi, Meru, right? Many such cab aggregators were there. But in those days, Ola, Uber gave rates that burnt, that were clearly loss making. 6 rupees per kilometer, 8 rupees per kilometer, right? And everybody started burning their pocket. Slowly, not all pockets are big. Some people whose pocket got burnt off completely exited the market. And Ola and Uber, because they were backed by big capital funding, kept on growing. Today, probably, if you realize, you are paying nothing less than 20 or 22 rupees per kilometer on a cab, right? Similarly, the drivers in those days were making an income of 1 lakh, 1,50,000, so much that people bought cars out of their savings and put it on a contract with the driver to run Ola Uber. Today, no driver effectively earns more than 20, 25,000, depending on the cost of living in different cities, right? So it's a model where somebody burnt money to reach certain scale and eliminate competition. Today, the amount of pin code coverage, the number of cabs that they have, nobody can match that scale and reach there, right? Today, with great quality, if I start a cab aggregation with even 20 rupees per kilometer, I will not be able to reach Ola Uber because I cannot directly have the number of cars that they do. I don't know how many cars they have exactly, tens of thousands or whatever. I cannot suddenly start 50,000 car business in India. I will start with 500 cars, which means that if you book a cab from my platform, you will take 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I will not be present in every city. So as a consumer, you will always prefer Ola and Uber because they have reached a scale that cannot be matched by anyone unless humongous amount of capital is put, which nobody will do, right? They have reached this scale. So the first point that I made was, to be successful, your product needs to be great, superior, of different quality, which nobody can match. Or if you are just any other product, let's say like cab service, then you need to reach a scale that nobody can match, right? So therefore, you need to have a clear eye on two things. What play are you doing? And you need to know till when you will reach there and how much capital you will burn. Burning capital is not a problem. Making losses is not a problem. It is just that you need to know this terminology that you have in startups is called how much runway you have left. Right? You need to know what is the runway remaining. You need to have the planning to achieve your objectives within that period. Right? And be sure about your business model. Right? Unnecessarily, if you start thinking you're a tech company, sorry, then you're something wrong with your business model. You don't know what you are, right? So that is why a lot of businesses startups are facing problems, and a lot of them are in need of the classic restructuring concepts, either around capital or operations. Yeah. So I think we have 20 or 19 minutes left. Rather than me just talking and with videos of not knowing whether people are sleeping or I was too boring.
No, all are listening, Lokesh.
So
Only thing is to control the crowd and no noise. We kept it so that you should not disturb that.
No problem. Yeah. So
yeah.
I was just joking. So I thought if 19 minutes are
really
left,
wonderful, like a narration of the situations. We are really impressed, Mr. Lokesh. The way you enunciated the situations, really good and thoughtful. There are many questions there. Students have lined up now. Yeah, sure. Over to you, Kaushik.
Sir, you just told us that necessity is the mother of all creations. So, sir, I wanted to know what is the necessary skill sets a student should have before going into the corporate world and being an aspirant of working in this industry.
Yeah, and
specifically into this field, because students have been trained for taxation, US taxation, Indian taxation, and other financial area consultant positions. But even into this restructuring, loan related, credit related, whatever you narrated, operation restructuring, maybe Kaushik is asking these questions, correct? Am I right,
yeah,
Kaushik?
I got it. Yeah. So So let me split that question in two parts. Skill set needed to do, let's say, operations restructuring, and skill sets needed to do financial restructuring. My answer for skill sets needed to operations restructuring will disappoint you maybe, because the skill sets needed are very basic: common sense, strong sense of logic, and a good commercial acumen. That's it.
That's
You don't need anything else, right? Because entrepreneurship is about all that. You need to have some sort of entrepreneurial thinking to run businesses, right? Today, if you in operations restructuring, if you want to go and consult a business, you're trying to tell someone with a 30 years experience in that very business how to do things better, right? For sure, you are not going to know the sector better than that person at the age of, let's say, mid to
correct.
late 20s. This classroom might be right. Imagine a 28-year-old going to a 55-year-old experienced person who has done that business for 30 years, saying, hey, by the way, I have come here to save your business. Imagine that dialogue, right? So for sure, no amount of qualification can match you with a experience of a 30 years experienced person. But yes, a great commercial acumen, very strong sense of logical thinking and common sense is all what is needed to figure out problems, to do stakeholder management, right? I mean, when I say common sense and logical thinking, it will also encompass your ability to think from perspective of the other person.
Correct.
Today, whenever we think and respond to situations, we always think and respond as per our own opinions, right? If I tell you something, the first thing comes in your mind is your own bias, your own opinion, and you talk basis that. But one great characteristic needed in operations restructuring is hold on to your thought. You may have your own views and opinions, but do you have ability to really understand the view and opinion of the other person and address the situation keeping that in mind?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If any one of your professors gets angry and loses cool on you, don't will you focus on what was told to you? Your reaction will be, can be anything. But if you focus, ignore the what, just focus on the why. Things will be different. Your reaction will be different. The world will be different. If you start focusing on why behind the what, your responses to everything in life, whether personal or professional, will be very different, right? So these are very basic things. In operations restructuring, there are no technical qualifications that you need. However, in financial restructuring, yes, you will need experience around the RBI circulars, different credit norms of the banking system, which are, what ratios they accept, what ratios they don't accept, what are the modeling rules that they work on, etc., which can be had with, any organization that is focusing on restructuring. Um, and a lot of these organizations do take in freshers and train them to grow into professionals. One basic prerequisite will be very strong Excel and business modeling skill in both these fields. You need to be, not basic Excel or basic business modeling, but knowledge about valuation models, Excel, and how to create those models in Excel is a great skill that is needed. It's important skill that is needed.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a question to ask. Rightly said, out of box thinking, that is one of the skills that even I believe that students have to develop, that out of box thinking. Sir, though we have the subject called corporate restructuring, mergers and acquisition, as it is a choice-based system, many of the students have the feeling that it is complicated and complex subject to understand, so they don't prefer to take. So now we are understanding this area is good. So can the students take this topics as a project topics? Can they do project? If they're interested to do the project, then what is your suggestion that where they can access the data so that they can take and do the project and they come up with the finding and suggestion on corporate restructuring, be it operational or financial restructuring?
Oh yeah, so see, there are first of all to create interest in this. Of course, one may need to go through a lot of case studies. Let's say for example, how Tech Mahindra acquired Satyam Computers in 2009 and turned it around to make one of the top software companies in the country today. In 2012, this brand called Reebok that had a massive issue in their operations. It rebranded and recreated itself as a fitness brand, and how it bounced back is another case study, right? You might often be hearing about how Tata turned around Jaguar and Land Rover when they were sinking ships, right? So there are a lot of these examples and case studies to begin with that maybe Ramya madam, you can incorporate in your curriculum, how things were done right, how things were planned, and how turnaround was achieved, right? If you talk about more recently, Bhushan, there are these large steel companies called Bhushan Steel or SR Steel that were under insolvency, were acquired by new owners. Bhushan was acquired by Tata's and SR was acquired by ArcelorMittal. These are also some very recent great examples of turnarounds. And there are a lot of Harvard School case studies also. Like for example, one case study that I remember is Sundar Pichai when he became the CEO of Alphabet, not Google.
Yeah.
His personality completely changed, right? He was when in his early days of his career, he was the one who took a lot of bold calls and took some courageous decisions around Chrome, etc. But when he became a CEO, he became a more conservative, composed personality, not wanting to take too many risky calls. Because he's at a different stage, a different position, right? Where the stakes are higher, there is no escalation above you, there is no safety net below you if you go wrong. So he was criticized by his people around him that he was not doing a great job, etc. Right? So how he managed all that and overcame all that is also a case study, right? About his leadership style,
Yeah.
right? So to kindle interest about any topic in someone, the practical aspect or connect to the real world examples is very important, right? So the two ways. One is have some real life case studies, and second is create some dummy case studies. Give a problem and request students to solve the problems, right? Can be done, and there are organizations like us who can offer 2-month internships in your summer breaks or something. We can talk about that offline, and whoever is doing in this field, me and my peers in other organizations, we can always have some 2-month internship period for giving exposures to make you better understand how things are done in real life.
Thank you very much. Nice.
Thank you, sir. Even we are expecting that is 16 weeks they go for internship. So if students are interested in this corporate restructuring, even they can go as interns and work in a company where they're working on this corporate restructuring or distress or crisis management, and then they can help them and learn from that.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Kaushik, you have a question to ask?
Sir, you just told us about the institutions which prefer freshers for this role, sir. So can we know which institutions can we target?
Well, a lot of them, Kaushik. Since you will be recording this and putting in public domain, I'm happy to connect offline and speak to you more on that.
Right.
Yes,
Sure. Actually, we have a capstone project at the end of the second semester, where the students have to look around for the real life problem of an organization.
Right.
So when we were, there, the students can connect and get that kind of exposure. Specifically, the way you narrated that situations, what you faced in your life situation, that is more or less we would like to give it for our students. But when we are referring the cases, for example, even Tata, restructuring, if you look into it, or maybe it will move around only the superficial things about data and narrate as a story. Not in details about what exactly the situation, and going in depth will not be available. That is the reason we were asking, like, which kind of report or where we can get more details.
So again, a lot of this data will be confidential, but as a concept, maybe if you have one or two case studies that you're interested in teaching the class, I can help you build that. No problem.
Good.
So just share the topics that you're interested and some background or built up around that. I'll be happy to.
Sure.
Sure, sir. We will share that topics. We are interested in that cases.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Kaushik, any other questions you would like to ask?
Ma'am, I would like the participants for their.
Any participants would like to raise the questions, please raise your hand, or maybe you can switch on your unmute yourself and ask questions.
Sir, you were saying that the model building, business modeling or model building, they have to learn. So we are introducing a project-based subject for this 20 to 22 batch. Corporate valuation is the subject, where they learn how to do the corporate valuation. They also learn financial modeling. So is there any other certification courses or skills you suggest that will help them to learn this business modeling?
Yeah, sure. So I think there are a few on Udemy. There is this app called Udemy. There are a few good. Yeah, there are a few good courses on that. And also in terms of certification, there are some modeling courses which are also done by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Because then that gives you a more authorized degree of institute of repute in the country. So yeah, these two things come to my mind: Udemy and ICAI courses.
Can our MBA students can also fit or qualify to become this chief restructuring officers, or is there any specific qualification required for that?
Yeah, so anyone can become CRO, frankly. There is no qualification required. Secondly, CRO is not any statutory designation like a chartered engineer or a chartered accountant, right? So anybody who has entrepreneurial skills and zeal to solve problem, has great commercial acumen and leadership skills, can become a CRO. Just like anybody can become CEO, anybody can become CRO. It's just that becoming a CRO needs a little different bent of mind, like I explained with my theory of -100 to +1 and 1 to 100.
That is really interesting. I know the pain of converting it. Revamping is not an easy job. That's right. Maybe we'll close the session now if no more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Please propose a vote of thanks and then.
Kaushik, over to you.
Thank you, sir, for being so patient and answering all our questions. Now, as we bring this enlightful session to a close, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Lokesh, sir. Your expertise has been a guiding light throughout this journey. A sincere thank you to our head of the department, KG Hemalata Madam, and our principal and our management for all the support and guidance. I also thank all the participants for the active participation and keen interest. Let us carry forward the lessons learned today as we continue to explore and contribute to the world of finance. This is Kaushik signing off. Thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you, Lokesh. Around 130 students are there. They are clapping the hands. Hope you could hear.
Yeah, it is offline, sir.
Almost 2 full sections are clapping your session now. So thank you very much. It was really a wonderful session today. We had it. We could, like enjoy the journey that what you had it and explain the way you have done it. Looking forward to have more number of sessions in future. And
thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And as I said,
it
is very matter of delight and great pleasure that to see education institutions focusing on this field and a lot of young students taking interest in this topic. So that's a matter of great joy to me as a professional and practitioner of this field. And thank you once again. I wish everyone all the very best for your careers. And as you said, ma'am, looking forward to being of any valuable assistance to you in developing case study,
Yes,
figuring
yes.
out internships, and doing more sessions in future.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so
So
much.
as a thanking note, I would instruct now Professor Ramya to incorporate one project in the name of corporate restructuring. Either
Sure,
it is financial restructuring or operational, maybe an entrepreneurial journey, whatever it is, but it has to be there in our journey as a commemoration of our this event with Mr. Lokesh Gupta.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Kaushik, and thank you all the participants for actively taking part in this session.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
All the
Thank
very
you,
best.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.